Good afternoon and welcome back to Kennedy Space Center for our Orion flight test post-scrub briefing. We're going to go over the scrub today and then also our plan going forward. And to tell you all about that, we have, first of all here, Mark Geyer, the NASA Program Manager for Orion. Mike Hawes, the Lockheed Martin Program Manager for Orion. And finally, Dan Collins, the United Launch Alliance Chief Operating Officer. We'll start with some opening remarks and then take a few questions.
Yeah, so I'll make it short and sweet. So the team worked really hard, made a great attempt to get off today. In the end, made the right choice based on the data we had to not fly today. We will attempt tomorrow. There's still some open work that we're working today to confirm that, but our plan is to fly tomorrow. I do want to say the engineering team, the team in Houston, Mission Ops, and the recovery team we're ready, did a great job today, and they will be ready tomorrow. The ships are still on station. They'll stay there, of course, per the normal plan, still for several days, so not a early driver. And I'll cover the landing weather. Landing weather for tomorrow still looks good. We'll get a little higher wave heights, probably getting closer to the 6-foot seas, but again, well within our constraints, so landing weather tomorrow is very good. And again, I want to thank and congratulate the team for the hard work they did today as we get ready for tomorrow. So I'll pass to Mike.
And I thought I'd just spend a couple minutes talking more specifically about Orion and the spacecraft. So we went through the power-up procedure right at launch minus 6 hours, as the timeline calls for. Spacecraft worked extremely well. Everything came up just as we would have envisioned, and the team did a great job not just going through all of that, but also going through the recycles and all the things, as Mark said, that we have had them practice. We have all been together for simulations, and we have been through this process, and they went just like the simulations have trained us all to do. So it was, the spacecraft looks good. There are no specific issues that we're working on Orion, but there are some questions that come up as part of the scrub, like how many cycles can we do in terms of the batteries that power our developmental flight instrumentation and those kinds of things, because we do run on internal battery power after the launch minus 9 minute point in the count. So we've used up a couple cycles, and so we have to look at how that factors into the next couple attempts. But overall, the spacecraft just looks fantastic. And then I'll hand over to Dan then.
Well, thanks. I'll echo the comments of both Mark and Mike. Very, very proud of how the integrated team, the NASA, Lockheed Martin, Range, and ULA team executed today's attempt. We went on console just after midnight and had a very nominal count as we came through. Worked a couple of anomalies, little things that the team got together and discussed, cleared them, and continued to move forward. As we got into our first couple of attempts, we had 3 today. We called a hold. The automated hold came out due to high ground winds. We were battling some winds that in the 20 to 21 knot range that were coming right at a separation between a direction where we had a 19 knot limit and a 21 knot limit. And we were good unless it just kind of went to the wrong azimuth, and then it kicked us out the first 2 times. We got to a relatively quiescent period in the winds where we had a good shot at it, and that's when we made our 3rd attempt. And at that point in time, we had some fuel valves on the common booster cores that had gotten cold and a little sluggish in their performance. So we, again, had a hold there. The team did a great job of evaluating this. This is something that we have seen on one previous heavy launch where we had a long window and had gone into it quite a ways into the window. So we're off today, going to execute the same procedures that we did after that last attempt, and very confident that we're going to be able to exonerate the hardware and then make an attempt later, going on console again early on Friday morning for a launch window, which is the same Friday as it was today.
All right. We're going to take questions here, but keep in mind these guys started their day yesterday, and they'll start tomorrow tonight. So we're going to try and limit it to 30 minutes, but we can start over here.
Jason Ryan for SpaceflightInsider.com. I think this one's for Dan. We noted that a boat came in early on in your first launch attempt and caused a little bit of havoc. That's happened at Wallops at least once. It happened with the F9. It's happened a few times before. I was hoping maybe one of you guys could talk a bit about that. How far out does the field for EFT-1 reach that I guess the Coast Guard has to patrol go, and what are you guys doing to kind of mitigate that?
I don't have the specifics as far as the SCO box, how far it goes out, and it's different on based on payloads and a lot of analysis that goes into that. But the range does an amazingly good job, and I understand every once in a while these things happen. But they go to really all of the different maritime organizations and communicate very, very well where the stay-out areas are. They get to all of the marinas in the local area to make sure that the private boaters all understand that's there, and really have seen a significant change, I'd say even in the last 5 to 10 years, to where these occurrences happen very, very infrequently. When they do happen, the range is typically on top of it and can clear the box in a relatively short period of time. And what happened today was they did spot the boat that was in the box, the ship. They started down 2 paths. One was to get the specifics on the size of the ship so they could understand whether they were violating safety requirements or not. And then 2 was to help the ship get out of the box. As they were helping the ship get to the right place, they ran their analysis and found out that there was not a safety violation with where the ship was at that point in time, and then it cleared.
I'm Jeff Patterson with WFLA TV out of Tampa. And Dan, this may be for you as well. Did that boat violation set off a series of events that led to the ultimate cancellation of the launch today? In other words, the powering up, powering down, you had the window open at 7:05 and the wind parameters looked like they were within reason, but did that one event set off the ultimate failure of today?
I don't think there's data that could tie those together. I've looked at the wind data for the first part of the window, and there was no 4-minute period, I would say, for the first half hour approximately of the window where we would not have violated, maybe even the first 45 minutes. So I think we were going to be a no-go because of the winds. And there isn't data that I could tie the cause of today's scrub back to that single incident with the boat.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. Could you look ahead? What's your strategy going in? How many days in a row could you try to launch before standing down for team rest? And is there any cost associated with each day's scrub?
We can launch a Delta IV Heavy 2 of any 3 days, because of the commodities that are used to fill the large CBCs and the boil-off that happens during a count. We know we can get 2 out of 3, but if we go Friday and actually tank and go into the window, then we'll have to stand down Saturday while we refill the ground tanks. If we come on console tonight or early Friday morning, and we've either found something over the next 18 hours or so where the weather's taken a significantly different path than we think, then we may choose to stand down Friday and move to Saturday because we can do 2 of those 3. So that's our constraint, is we can launch the Heavy 2 of 3 days. It's constrained by the size of our ground tanks. It's only an 850,000 gallon liquid hydrogen tank, and so we got to fill it back up if we've gone twice. There is a cost associated with scrubbing. There's no doubt about it. Just in the commodities, there's the boil off that's there, but that's part of doing this business, and the cost of that pales in comparison to trying to fly when the rocket is telling you, I'm not quite ready.
So if you don't go during these 3 days, how long do you have to stand down for the next go-around?
We will work with the range if we get past Saturday. We have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday reserved on the range. Should we get past Saturday, then we will work with the range to try to continue to launch. They certainly are aware of our presence and are typically very, very good in helping us. We do know that we have a launch on the West Coast next Thursday that we're going to have to make a call. The point I should make is we know that if we launch on Sunday here, then we are still good with our launch date on the 11th out on the West Coast. After that, we would have to probably work with our customers to figure out how to move around to accommodate that.
And the other factors, Marcia, we know we have teachers' time, for instance, for today and tomorrow already locked in, already scheduled. As we get past those days, we have to go back to the network and negotiate those kinds of things. We understand the constraints with the Navy and the recovery operations, so those are pretty well understood, but they are all, fundamentally new negotiations that happen as we get further in the window.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Craig Cavalt with Aerospace America, and a little more on the valves, please. How large are they? Are they rotating ball valves or something quite different? And I just want to be sure where they're exchanging hydrogen between.
Sure. We'll start with what they're doing. These are fill and drain valves that are on the vehicle side, and their job is very shortly after we pick up terminal count, these valves close and then never operate again. So they're there while we're filling the tanks. Once they're full, they stay static for the entire rest of the mission. I don't want to, they are relatively large valves. I don't want to give you an exact diameter, but somewhere in the 8 to 10 inch diameter type of a range, and they are ball valves. Yes.
Randy Siegel, WSTU Radio. Follow up on the valves. Is it because of the cold from the hydrogen and oxygen that caused the valves apparently to stick and not allow them to move properly?
Let me, yes, a little bit of a clarification. Our LOX valves all perform nominally through the entire count today. 2 of our hydrogen valves, and you may expect that hydrogen being significantly colder, they were the ones that were sticking. And so we believe that's the case. The reason we believe that is that's what we found the last time we ran into this issue. But we're going to let the data tell us exactly what was going on today, and that's what the engineering team is over in the building, running through the data and looking to see if what are the proper tests to run today to make sure that we absolutely understand what happened today and not make any assumptions about what the history has shown us. So today will stand on its own, and we'll move forward based on the right moves from what we see today. Yes.
Amy Green, WMFE Public Radio. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to clarify, was the boat in restricted space or not? And also, I wanted to clarify the valve issue, which was the cause of the final scrubbing. I wondered if you could explain in just very layman's terms what that malfunction was, and was it the valve issue that ultimately scrubbed the mission, or are you saying that the winds would have scrubbed the mission either way?
Okay. I would like you to, if you would please. I'm not a range expert. I have my belief on where the boat was. Ultimately, the boat was in a safe spot. Based on all of the data that goes into determining whether we're safe to fly or not. And that's really what the range determined. What we know as the user of the range is that the range did their job, determined that it was safe to launch, and they gave us the go-ahead. Ultimately, today's launch was scrubbed because of the valve behavior that we saw during the count. The wind scrubbed us on our first 2 attempts. That's what knocked us out. And on the third attempt, it was scrubbed because of the valve. Had the valve and all other parts of the rocket performed nominally, the winds were green during the third attempt.
Thank you. Tarek Malik with Space.com. I just had actually a follow-up to Marcia's question, I think maybe for Mark. Just looking ahead to tomorrow and possibly Saturday, I think the weather does not look as good as it did today. I think it's like 60%, no-go. How will you be tracking that in real time to decide, and when can you decide tomorrow whether or not to shift to Saturday? And do you expect kind of the same conditions on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Dan talked about that. While the percentage is higher, the wind direction actually is better for us. So even though it's a higher wind speed, the direction is in a better direction. So we actually have higher margin in that case. So it looks like it actually will be about a push for us tomorrow. So that's good news. I'd say that's the key for tomorrow. We will track it, and as Dan said, we're going to look at it before we tank, because we know that's kind of starts the clock on getting these valves cool. So we're going to make that decision prior to tanking, and if it looks reasonable, then we're going to proceed. And we have other constraints on Orion too, as far as the cycling of the battery, so that's all part of what we'll talk about. Yeah.
Hi, Jared Hayworth with Spaceflight Insider. This is a question for Dan. How well defined are the rules for switching from the automatic wind, the ground wind abort to the manual? And how much confidence do you have in the launch team that, I guess, when you go to manual, that they'll make the right call and actually call the abort in the wind conditions?
Sure. So the process for changing requirements during a count is a very, very well laid out and disciplined process. And that well laid out disciplined process gives us extremely high confidence that by using that process, if we do decide to make a change, that we are going to be able to execute it with the very, very high requirement for mission success that we have. So very, very confident in the process. We had decided that if we were to have made a fourth attempt and the winds were in that same area, that they could be a problem, that we would have gone to manual. We are currently set up, looking at tomorrow, to start out with the automated system as our baseline. Should we find ourselves in a situation where we believe there's a benefit to going to the manual, I'm trying to think of not getting the right word, manual monitoring. Thank you, of the winds, that we will be able to do that. In fact, that was the baseline, the manual monitoring of the winds, up until about 2 years ago. So going back to it is going back to something that we know very, very well.
Looks like we've got one back here, and I know we've got one on the phone as well. So,
Lee Roop with Huntsville Times, AL.com, also for Dan. How old is that rocket out there? I've heard 8 years old. Is that right? And could its age be a factor in the valves?
It is definitely not 8 years old. The question is, how long has that rocket been out there? I believe it went on the stand November 1st. About 2 months, rather than try and be specific. But that rocket's been out on the stand, I believe, about 60 days now, maybe a little bit longer. It was built, completion of all 3 of the common booster cores in the upper stage was this year. So it's a very, very fresh hardware, and I don't believe that the rocket's age had any effect on today's operations.
okay, we're going to go to a question on the phone real quick while we get the microphone reset. I think we have Stan Ingold online.
Yes, Stan Ingold, Alabama Public Radio. My question is, will the ordeal today, does that impact your confidence at all in the Delta Heavies, or also any changes it could lead to with the Atlas rockets?
Well,
go ahead.
It doesn't change our confidence in the rocket. It's a great rocket. We've worked with this team from the beginning. They've done an outstanding job. I think they made good choices today, and it was a complex day. So it doesn't change our confidence at all.
I would just like to, talk about today. You used a term that I would disagree with. Today was a very, very disciplined process. Our team has built an amazing record of mission success because our team knows our rocket very, very well. And the team was absolutely on their game, listening to everything the rocket was telling us, and it ultimately told us it wasn't ready to go today. And so we'll go make sure we've got a happy rocket. And as soon as we do that, we're going to get back to the pad and send Orion off to a very, very successful test flight. And we're looking forward to doing that.
Okay.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Universe Today and America Space. A question about both the batteries and the valves. How long will it take you to determine what the problem is? And if you did have to make any change-outs, you know, what's the impact of that? A certain scrub? How long would it take?
I'll you guys, if chime in if you want to help, but
No,
it just the way you had planned it, huh? Very good questions, but very hypothetical. It's always hard to know exactly how quickly we're going to be able to process the data and understand exactly what happened. I'll tell you, my gut feel tells me this afternoon we'll have a pretty darn good idea, and then we'll convene all of the right people from the different aspects of the team and get our go-forward plan potted in a very integrated sense. How long it would take to change things out depends completely on how long it would take, what it is we were changing out. And so it's a very, very difficult, question to answer. Again, I probably the thing I can give you some guidance with, when we've seen similar behavior in the past, we did not need to change out any hardware. We were able to come up with different operational procedures to mitigate that risk, and we have many of those options at our disposal. So I think the most likely path forward, and there's you never say never in this business, but the most likely path forward would be that we would employ some type of operational procedure in order to mitigate the risk of this happening again.
And about the battery?
Well, there's a couple battery issues that our engineering teams are off looking at, and the real determination there is how many cycles can we do, and depending on when the count, like I say, that we go to internal power at launch minus 9 minutes in the normal flow. So we've done assessments of how long we stayed in that situation and how long it would take us to charge batteries back up. We also collect data during that time, so there's a data recorder that could get filled up that we would have to also do something to process. But we're working to make sure that we understand all those constraints right now. That's what the engineering teams are doing.
And there's a battery issue with on the rocket side too that we're understanding and working with. It has to do with instrumentation as well, and but none of the instrumentation plays into the control systems of the rocket. So they're what we would call required assets, not mandatory. So again, the team will work through that, and I think we'll be ready to give it another try here very soon.
Yes, Brent Houston with the Tacoma Voice. Since the valves have had a problem before, and now they have a problem that scrubbed today's launch, would that warrant some kind of redesign of the valve itself?
The valves have worked many times very, very well, but it's a great question that the team will be asking and looking at. Again, similar to the previous answer, I think there are probably procedural fixes that would be employed prior to us going to a valve redesign.
We had one in the middle here.
Thank you. Jane Wells with CNBC. A couple questions. Did the valves, 3 questions. Did the valves close during the first 2 attempts? Is the cost of today's scrubbing being added beyond the $370 million, or is that all incorporated in that sort of, you're nodding yes. Okay. Did the valves close? And third, there are some who have said the ship was a cruise ship. Is that true?
So let's see. The first one was in the first 2 attempts, we did not get to send the command to close the valves. So there was no attempt, and therefore they were not active when the winds scrubbed those attempts. I think the second has been answered. I don't. What I heard on the net was a cargo ship. So that's the information I have. Again, that's the range's responsibility, and I probably should be careful about answering for them. But that's what I heard on the net.
Okay, I think don't see any more questions. Oh, one more from James Dean, and I think that'll be it for us.
James Dean, Florida Today, and I might regret asking what might seem like quite a silly question, but you got a real heavy rocket on the pad. I wondered if you wouldn't mind explaining, what is the threat that a stiff breeze poses to this 1.5 million pound rocket, and why is it that a little bit different direction tomorrow might make such a difference?
Actually, no problem at all. As the rocket lifts off, a wind can push the rocket. You look at the sail area of a heavy, and a wind from a certain direction, you get one profile this way and another profile this way. And so which side of that rocket the wind's blowing on, it's kind of either blowing on a knife or it's blowing on a garage door. Makes a big difference. The other part is, where is the rocket being blown to? As the rocket comes up, if there is a wind, it will drift. If it starts to drift towards the fixed umbilical tower, which is the structure that holds the swing arms, then obviously you can't drift as far in that direction as you can in other directions where there are no other structures in the area. So the reason the wind's important is it does push the rocket as you're coming up off the launch pad. And the reason the direction's important is because there are structures near the rocket that need to be there to accommodate the launch, and you don't want to get pushed into those.
Okay, I think we will wrap up there. We'll try again tomorrow at 7:05 a.m. Eastern Time again. But tomorrow, our NASA TV coverage of the event will start at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check up on the status of events in the meantime at nasa.gov/Orion to keep up with what exactly is going on. So I'll see you all there tomorrow, and then hopefully have a post-splashdown news conference after that. Thanks so much.
That's what I heard, yeah.